My full name is Douglas John Charles Putnam. I was born in 1923, December the 1st. I was born in Toronto, Canada. Actually, they imported me. My mother and dad came to Cleveland about 1925. No, I was able to get my citizenship when I was at Scott Field training in the radio for the U.S. Army Air Force. I served in the branch of the United States Army Air Force. At that time, it was adjoined to the United States Army, and so they called it the United States Army Air Force. I served from, well, let's see, 1944 to 1945. Yeah, early 1944, late 1945. I served in World War II, and I served in, well, I trained in the United States, but we flew from Kearney, Nebraska in our B-17 to Ireland, and we dropped the airplane off there because it wasn't armed. It only had, and in the bomb bays, it had huge tanks, which helped us get from Kearney all the way over to, well, we stopped in Newfoundland. We stopped in Bangor, Maine, and then we stopped in Newfoundland, and then we ended up in Ireland. And then we took a ferry across to England, and then they dropped us off at Sudbury, Suffolk in England, and just outside Sudbury was our base. It had been a B-24 base, but they changed it to a B-17 base upon our arrival. Well, you should have seen us taking off there. We were restricted to 50 pounds, but when it turned dark, the crews all went out and loaded it up a little more than 50 pounds. I was drafted. I was a Canadian citizen, and I thought seriously about going to Canada and training because I wanted to be in the Air Force. I wanted to learn how to fly. But I was drafted, and I was living just outside Detroit in a town called Grosse Pointe, and Grosse Pointe was it was a park, a village of farms and woods, and my folks and I lived in the Grosse Pointe Farms area. From Michigan, we took a train down to Miami, Florida, and we slept on the seats. So when we got there, we marched from there to a hotel, which was quite nice. And every day we marched. And we sang all the way to the parade grounds and sang all the way home, which was, it was easy to do. And we did exercises. First thing every morning we did exercises. So it just felt normal. Met a lot of fellows, and most of them I enjoyed. Well, boot camp was in Miami, as I explained, and it was not difficult. The food was good. We'd march to the parade grounds in the morning, march home. After dinner or lunch, we would march back to the parade grounds and march some more. And that was about the size of it. Other than that, and exercising, boot camp was pretty enjoyable. I don't remember their names, but I do remember the person that was in charge of us. He was a permanent Army sergeant. He was a three-striper, and he looked like he drank a lot of beer. And I don't recall any time that he was upset about anything. He seemed to just have us march, and happy with that. Yeah, we went to England. We arrived in Sudbury, Suffolk, and went out to the base. And arriving at the base, they oriented us about where we were and what to do, and be careful of this and that and the other thing, especially the women. And it was quite something because we weren't at that base 2 or 3 days before. I don't know if you're familiar with the V-1 bomb. Well, the V-1 bomb was on its way over our base, and the announcer said, "We have a V-1 bomb coming, and we want you to take a cover." And actually, as he was saying this, you felt like he was leaving the mic because it kept getting fainter and fainter. And we all ran. They had these areas where they had concrete around, and then earth built up to the concrete, and so you just ran into that area. And that V-1 bomb, we heard it coming, we heard the engine, and we heard it shut off. But it was past us when it shut off. My job was a radio operator, and yes, I saw combat. 29 missions over Germany and 2 over France. And actually, you were supposed to do 36 missions before you were relieved of duty over there. And I was very fortunate. Captain Whitney was our first pilot, and he was a terrific guy and a wonderful pilot. You could tell that Captain Whitney was flying the plane if you were within about 30 feet of the lead plane. But when Velo, the co-pilot, he always flew a little further away. So we were put on lead ship after about 6 or 7 missions. So I only flew about 10 missions that way, but because then they made Captain Whitney a higher grade officer than he was, and he became a lead. The colonel used to sit in the co-pilot seat when you were lead, so that's what Captain Whitney did. He was given a higher grade, and he served in the. Our crew was split up then. You know, when we went over in '44, things had changed pretty dramatically for the Air Force. The Germans weren't flying as many pursuits. And after we flew for probably 6 months, there were a lot more P-51s, and they had extended gas tanks on the wings. And so it was quite a bit better for us. And not only that, we flew in B-17Gs, which were updated from the original B-17s. The B-17 originally, they didn't have cover in the waist position. We did, so it was a lot warmer for the armored guys in the waist position. And the B-17G had a chin turret, which gave us more armament to shoot at pursuit ships coming towards us. It was quite a bit better. Although we still lost planes. I mean, sometimes in France, when we went to France to bomb the submarine pens, one crew couldn't get their bomb bay doors closed, and we were, I think, flying at 7,000 feet. And so instead of having one of the gunners go out and crank the bomb bay doors closed, he decided he would take his airplane and try to make the air pressure, if he turned his plane a little bit, help free the doors and close them. He ran into another ship, and we lost 2 B-17s with that little maneuver. So sometimes you just lost planes because of an accident, but it was considerably better from '44 to '45 than it was in the early days. Only by mail. We stayed in touch by just writing letters. So if you were a good letter writer, your folks got a chance to. Well, and you know, you could only write so much. You couldn't tell them a lot of what you were doing. The food for the Air Force, the flying personnel, especially in the flight on the morning we were going to fly, you could order ham and eggs. You could order eggs over easy. You could pretty well have a really nice meal before you left. And but generally speaking, it was good food. I remember when I first went into Miami, the sign before you went down the line was, "Take all you want, but eat all you take." And that one particular day, I took some soup, and as I was eating it, I came across what are the bugs that are in the kitchen? I can't think. Anyhow, there was a bug floating, a fairly large bug floating in my soup, and so I pushed it aside, and it just so happened the sergeant came by. He said, "Soldier, you got to eat that soup." And so I got the bug and put it on my spoon, and he looked at it. "Oh my God," he said. So he picked that soup up and went off to the kitchen. So, well, I probably would have to say the Germans probably had the most advanced technology because they were shooting off rockets before we ever thought of shooting off rockets. But as far as production, I don't think the Japanese or the Germans ever dreamed that the United States could put together the armament that we put together. I mean, we were putting B-17s, B-24s together, pursuit ships together. You know, at the end of the war, they ran out of pilots. And actually, I've been told, and I've read I've read more than one or two books on the air forces of Germany and the United States. And in one book, they were saying that the Germans were so desperate that they told their pilots, you know, if you can't shoot them down, run into the planes. Now, isn't that something? That's like kamikazes. We just overdid it to them. We just, you know, inundated them with power. So it got to the point where you could see an ME-109 going down, getting away from about 4 P-51s, chasing them down, you know, and I don't know, I don't suppose they ever survived with 4 P-51s after them. So I didn't have the experiences a lot of my friends had that were in the Army, that actually, you know, did the similar things that others did, going to war across the Channel and being number one in that first facility, those people that were there first in Europe. So I had it fairly easy. And I really kind of think that it wouldn't be a bad thing that we would do that like Israel does. If you're healthy in Israel, you go in the Army. And I think people like myself grew up the way we did, because you know, a lot of my friends, we weren't wealthy. This is because we lived in Grosse Pointe. But I had a lot of friends whose friends and who were wealthy, and they had it fairly easy, quite easy. You know, private schools and so forth. So I think really they could learn a lot. My son, Matt, my oldest son, you know, he felt that he should have gotten in the service. And he's an orthopedic surgeon, and so they could use orthopedic surgeons. So he, in fact, did go. He's a lieutenant colonel in the reserves in Minnesota. He felt it was his duty to do something in the way of. So he went to Afghanistan and worked in a forward operating base, and so he knows what it's like to see people shot up. But I think it wouldn't do anybody I know harm to go in the service, because they will learn how to work with other people. They will grow up. I certainly had to grow up, because you have to take responsibility for your job. You know, you're there with. Actually, the crews were made up of 10 people originally, but they reduced it to 9 over there in Europe. But you're responsible for the other 9 guys or 8 guys. So you learn, you know that, and you start out marching, and you got to stay in step for sure, or you. It isn't like Laurel and Hardy. So I don't think it would harm anybody to serve. I think I would recommend it, at least for a year or 2.